Wah, lagi masuk dia ya. 2 orang di kamar mandi kan. Buset kan masuk. Go to the right. Go to the left. Up to here. Oke, kita ikuti. Bangke ketabrak. Memek. Sekolahnya kok gini? Buset. Kambing. Awas, awas, woi. Astaga, ada itu. Bentar. Minggir. Woi, lolos kita, men. Find your locker. Ini locker kita di sini. Cuk. Mana locker kita? Wah, mulai bangke nih. Gak ada locker ya, langsung masuk ini kayaknya. Oh, ditipu kita. Yah, salah. Latihan nih. Go through to the left. Oke. Buset. Ini. Kok ngomongnya gitu? No one will ever love you. Asik. Kenapa memanjang? Sange dia, Cuk.
As soon as John woke up, the mirror called to him.
Lagi disunat ya, Mas. Sudah
His
sunat
abs looked like a pack of vacuum-sealed hot dogs. Tasty. Jim had remade John into a sculpted Adongus. He was finally everything a peen should be. Successful, travelled, and photogenic. The swan was starting to like John. It hadn't tried to peck his eye out in hours.
Mandi dulu, Cuk. Lama banget, Cuk, mandinya, Cuk. Oke. Find a date. Ayo. Kita cari kencan sekarang ya. Gimana cara kencan? Oh, di sini.
The reunion invitation caught John's eye.
Cepet, woi. Pakai baju dulu lah. Reread invite. Apaan ini maksudnya?
He read it again.
Okay.
And again. Stunned. He'd gotten the date wrong.
Okay.
Very wrong. The reunion was tonight.
Waktunya kencan. 6 jam lagi kita reunian.
He'd have to go alone.
Apa yang
They'd
kita
all be
lakukan?
there, and they'd look at John and they'd know he was still a loser. No, there was still time. John needed a date fast. He'd have to go out.
Ceritanya.
He'd have to make an impact. John had to dress his best, only better.
Klub apaan?
There had to be someone single and desperately alone in the city. Someone besides John.
Ya ampun, opo
He
iki?
just had to find them.
Itu titip
John
aja.
went straight to the
Bukan
nearest
ya?
bar.
Pakai
Sure,
topi.
it was still early, but he couldn't waste any time. There must be some day
Buset.
drinkers he could
Wih,
pick up.
sembarangan lu ya. Wow, udah dandan lagi, ada preman ya. Oh, ada preman cuy.
It was a classy place. Even the vomit was high quality. The bouncer looked like a hagfish that had taken up
Buset.
lacrosse.
Digebuk cuy. Bangke lu. Berani lu ya. Belum tahu player gua lu. Mampus. Kita disuruh ngapain nih?
Much better.
Oh, hey. Rokok ya.
John stepped into the bar and saw her. The answer to the question,
Oh, ini temannya.
what was John's purpose? Her. Loving her. Being with her. Taking her to the
Oke, kita
reunion.
temuin. Ayo.
Their eyes met and John knew she felt the same.
Belum sunat juga lu. Gila.
Gladys did not feel the same. But John wasn't going to give up on their life together. A couple of drinks would loosen her up to their destiny.
Press A, sweet money. Wah, bayarin cuy. Ayo minum cuy. Oh, minumnya pakai
Wow,
pantat, oke.
Gladys was not an amateur when it came to drinking. John had to keep up.
Mabok. Bayar lagi ya. Lagi cuy.
It was working. Gladys was definitely warming up to John.
Wah, mampus. 2 botol, 2 kaleng udah mampus dia. Beli lagi gua. Ambil. Oke. Beli lagi kita. Mabok, ayo mabok.
John's bladder was very full. It sloshed audibly as he moved.
Udah mabok cuy. Cari tempat istirahat. Wah, rusuh mabok. Main festival apaan cuy?
He didn't belong here.
Oh, ada tainya cuy. Kita bangke.
Holy balls. John had never felt such relief.
Habis muntah kita ya. Ini wah, lagi mesum dia ya. 2 orang di kamar mandi kan. Buset kan mesum. Layar gua kecepit lagi, gak bisa lewat cok. Kita kenapa ngeliat orang mesum nih? Wah, habis gini Facebook kreatorku ditutup sama Facebook nih kayaknya. Bangke kecepit layar gua. Kita grebek ya, coba kita grebek. Gak bisa cok, dikunci cok.
If only John could wash off the embarrassment like he washed off the urine.
Waktunya pulang.
John looked around. Gladys was gone.
Atau mau mabuk
John
lagi.
cursed his petite bladder.
Aks bartender.
The bored bartender shrugged and told John Gladys had left because some creep was trying to get her drunk.
Minum lagi, gak bisa kan? Minum lagi kita. Ini adalah
The bar was empty.
minum
The
lagi.
creep must have left too.
Kita suruh cari klip mana klip? Oh, udah silang.
It was clear the cockpit was on autopilot. Time for John to hit the next bar.
Udah. Ditutup. Iya kali ya, ditutup deh bangke.
John's anxiety had sunk under the surface of the beer he'd drunk, while his confidence was floating high. This was the place he'd find love. It was empty, except for the bartender. Clearly this bar's only special was unhappy hour. 2 for 1 was a good deal though, and so far the beer has lifted John's spirits. Another 4 would make him feel twice as good.
Udah mabok ya? Beli lagi lah. Stres ini, pengen mabok.
The bartender gave John a smile that set his heart hammering. He had to impress her.
Tip bartender kasih kita, kasih tip tuh, kasih tip terus playernya. Terima kasih.
What was so offensive about offering a big tip in exchange for a date? John had thought bartenders loved tips. He needed to find a better club. One with a vibe.
Banyak muntahan. 4 jam 52 menit lagi kita reuni.
John was drawn by the pulse of the music. It pulled him forward like a moth to a fiery death. John was running out of time to find a date and prove that he wasn't a loser. Dancing, the real way to flirt, the way of animals, of wild sexual creatures. John strutted and shook his booty. With booze buzzing round his head, John found himself on the dance floor. Everyone was up close and sweaty. John was exhilarated. He felt alive.
Susah, men.
John was working himself up to try a little bump and grind.
Ya, udahan ya kelasnya.
It was a moment out of a movie. John alone on the dance floor with a gorgeous penis, their sexual chemistry exploding.
Ngapain nih? Dance with her, oke. Awas, kita mau dansa.
She moved away,
Ayo
coyly.
kita dansa.
John could tell when someone was playing hard to get.
Follow pattern, oke.
He let her marinate in the tension before making his move.
Susah, Cok.
John wasn't taking no for an answer.
Bangke, ada suaminya, Cok.
Some people have no sense of fun, but John was certain the next bar would be different. The next bar wasn't different. John couldn't understand why everyone was so sensitive.
Kenapa, Cok?
It was like no one wanted to have a good time.
Tendang terus.
Like
ya.
no one had a sense of humor.
Dari tempat-tempat disco.
John had meant that as a compliment. When did the world get so uptight?
Dibuang di sampah nih kita.
John's ego was as bruised as his shaft. He had to admit it. He'd failed.
Main kita nih.
Oh,
Tempat
that's
sampah.
gross.
Wih, ngeling. Bangke di
John would
sampah.
have to go through the garbage to get out. Oh, it's so moist, but textured.
Kemana, Cok? Kita nggak boleh masuk ya. Awas sih. Kemana kita ya? biji buah gede.
It smells like rotting dick yogurt. John's misery was sour in his mouth. He needed a drink to wash it down. There was still one bar he hadn't been kicked out of yet. John had cleaned himself up as much as possible. He really needed a mate. John got it in, but he needed more to satisfy the machine. Nailed it. John let out his anger, his frustration. Life was a shitty joke. It wasn't fair. You want to mess with John? Do you?
Tuh, udah nggak bisa naik ke atas lagi. Udah aku tekan lagi, nggak bisa ya. Susahnya cok. Coba pakai pantat lah. Oh, di situ bisa. Mana bangke lah. Sepertinya saya harus merokok dulu cuy. Tahan tombol enter bos buat kentut. Oh iya cuy, dari tadi loh. Waduh, bos KSDA ini baru ngomong ya. Ngelihat googling kayaknya. Thank you infonya bos KSDA. Bisa kita. Hancurin ya.
This is what you get. Fuck you fucking thing.
Fuck you. Oke, thank you bos KSDA. Jadi teman-teman yang belum tahu main ini ya, kalau susah di sini caranya kentut itu tadi dapat info dari bos KSDA tuh ya. Caranya adalah ditahan enter. Ditahan enter terus dibuang ya. Itu caranya kentut.
You had one job.
Mantap. Lagi.
Die!
Hancurin mesinnya.
That's how you get what you want.
Mantap bos KSDA. Thank you infonya.
Mental.
Lagi nih. Wah. Udah. Mari kita melanjutkan misi kita.
John wanted the strongest drink they had.
Minum.
Rough night? Someone asked John. He hadn't noticed her when he came in, but now he did. It really had been a rough night for John, but he felt a little better that someone cared enough to ask. But destiny had given John a second chance. John made his move. Unfortunately, according to Alice and to her boyfriend Chadrick, it was the wrong move.
Dibuang lagi.
Chadrick threw
tarung
John into
kita ya.
the alley and
Ayo lu,
followed,
sini lu.
making unoriginal but still terrifying threats.
Mampus gak lu?
Get him, John! I can't watch. Don't hold back!
Mampus.
John had survived.
Jangan salah,
No,
kita bisa kentut
he'd won.
sekarang. Sudah sakit.
He'd won! He'd won! He wasn't a loser. And there was the proof lying in a bruised, bloody heap. John didn't need a date to the reunion. He needed to go over there and beat the pre-cum out of those dicks. High school reunion, the perfect time to teach someone a lesson.
Ngomong apa nih? Get off. Oke. Pintu keluarnya mana, coy? Hancurin semua. Apa lu? Apa lu? Udah bisa kentut kita.
The doors of the school, a sight John had dreaded every day for years, and now he was going willingly through them, unafraid, fueled by years of unprocessed anger fermented in loneliness. John was back.
Waktunya kita sekolah lagi. John is back.
The chickens were coming home to roost, and they were all cocks.
Fine bully. Siapa yang bully-bully saya? Bully apaan bullies?
These were the peanuts he'd grown up with. Now with jobs and marriages and beer bellies, John was surprised at how ordinary they had all turned out. He spotted them, John's tormentors. Time for them to feel the wrath.
Kita berkumpul.
Pow!
Bangke.
Don't let up! Fight back, John! Shake off the pain, buddy.
Oke. Mau ngejak gelut lu.
That's the stuff, John.
Peler gua lebih gede tuh.
Careful.
Mampus.
How do you like that?
Mampus. Mana lagi?
Ha! Who's a loser now? Who? Ha! John had won. He'd won. No one could say John was a loser now.
Kenapa nih?
John's primal joy faded as he saw how the other penises looked at him. Not like a winner, like he was trash.
Wah, dipandang. Merasa terkucilkan. Tidak baik perbuatan kita ya. Ditendang lagi.
John tumbled down the steps, hitting every bruise on his length and his ego. It was her, Harmony. She had been at the reunion. She'd seen it all and followed John out. To laugh at him more? No, to see if he was all right. Why did that hurt John so much?
Dia ngencingin kita.
This was John's chance to ask her why all those years ago she'd said to him, "No one will ever love you." Harmony stared at John in shock. How could John not know why? Didn't John remember what he'd done?
Ada ceritanya. Muntah kemana-mana. Muntah kita. Kenapa nih? Udah selesai ya? Kok ulang dari awal? Hah? Udah selesai? Bentar. Go to bleach answer. Ngobrolnya berair, Cuk. Udah selesai kah? Woi, banyak. Dililit, men. Garaga, Cuk. Kenapa kita sekarang panjang banget? John, kenapa kamu, John? Kita melewati masa-masa itu. 6 jam kemudian. Player 2.
There was nothing Sam enjoyed more than the fresh air of an early morning. The dew sparkling on the grass, the music of the trees, space to think.
Kemana nih? Kita kok jadi
What
hijau
was that
gini?
smell? It made Sam's eye water.
Keracunan punya kita nih.
It was John, passed out and crusted with vomit and regret. John was awake and tolerably clean. Sam tried to be gentle and invited John to join him on his walk.
Oh, kita jalanin 2 orang nih. Bingung, Cok.
Sam coaxed John along. It was like herding compost.
Bentar, kita bingung jalanin dua-duanya. Astaga. Kecepit lagi pelernya. Return to wake up John. Please return mana, Cok? Wake up John. Wait, John. Wait, John, wake up. Johnnya ketiduran. Ntar kita jalan satu-satu dulu. Ini dulu yang digerakin biar nggak bingung. Baru si John.
John couldn't answer Sam's questions yet. How had he ended up such a wreck?
Ih, si John yang gini lagi ya. Ketiduran lagi si John, Bang. Oke, John. John. Mabuk si John nih kayaknya nih. Press A to money. Wah, rusuh si John, rusuh. Rusuh nih.
Even that bit of senseless destruction couldn't cheer John up.
Ayo.
Sam saw his friend's misery. He suggested they keep going. John wanted to know something. Why didn't anyone love him? As soon as he said it, he felt like a softie, whining about his feelings.
Respon John.
But Sam didn't make fun of him. Sam asked him to go on.
Get up
And so
now.
John told him the whole story. About how hard he'd made himself and how unfair it felt. And everything he'd done. Saying it out loud, John realized he'd sounded like an asshole. But he'd done everything right. Why didn't he get what he wanted? Why didn't John get love? Wanting someone isn't the same as loving them, said Sam. You'll figure it out, John. But you have to keep trying.
Oh, si John sudah mulai bersemangat, saudara-saudara.
How about a bike ride? Sam asked.
Okay, get on bike.
John struggled to get his
Ada yang naik
balance,
sepeda gini.
but Sam told him not to give up. John kept trying, getting better as they went.
Awas. Gir rame, gir nabrak. Gir rame, gir nabrak. Mantap banget. Ntar John, jangan ditinggal John. Bingung kita jalanin dua-duanya. Ini kenapa jadi kayak gini?
John and Sam stopped and looked at the sunset. For a moment, John let himself be quiet and listen to the world and look at how beautiful it could be.
Lihat sunset John sama Sam. Hey, Pak RW, thank you. Biar semangat. Kok bentuknya kayak anu? Kok kayak anu? Bukan anu nih. Anunya siapa?
Life can be hard, said Sam. But that doesn't mean we have to be.
Wah, selesai tamat. Mantul.